approaching Zanzibar was very much thinking about my own mortality. I think I had just turned 50, which seemed appalling. But then people say, think of the alternative, so it's not so appalling. Um, and again, I was looking for an artist who is into transformation and transcendence. And so I've always been very taken with Christo and with the site-specific artists and the earth artists. And so I created a sort of Christo-like character um, who the family is going to visit. And actually, now that I think of it, my aunt was not ill at that time, my Aunt Mattie, my mother's sister. And then she became ill in the late 80s. And in fact, my brother and I would go and visit her, and then that was always a little scary, how would we find her? And as a child, I remember being suddenly aware of my own mortality at about the age of 7, that at some point I would cease to exist forever and ever and ever and ever. And I remember just being terrified and my father having to comfort me. And so I wanted to put that fear of death not into somebody my age, but into a child, because I had felt it so strongly as a child. And somehow, by placing it in her instead of me, it gave me a certain amount of freedom artistically to really go the full 9 yards in terms of exploring just how panic-stricken she gets, and that a child wouldn't have the sensors that an adult would have in terms of expressing herself. And because I was sort of the invisible child in our family, I have a brother, an older brother, who is a marvel and remarkably handsome and all of that. And so because I was always in eclipse, I took that same pattern again. But I was determined to give Pony her moment, which was a moment I never had. But I think that's why we sit down and write a play, to give, that she was the one that was most terrified of confronting this aged aunt who was dying of cancer, and she'd hear bits of her parents talking about, well, she has a wig and her teeth are gone, and so that Pony was so afraid that Olivia would just fall on her and she would be lying under this decaying hulk. And instead I have Olivia be the only one who can really see her. And that was just a huge gift for me, to make that leap in terms of my imagination, because it never quite happened in real life, but in my imagination suddenly Pony is recognized, and you get the feeling that Olivia is passing the torch and that Pony's going to become an artist.